friends, welcome to my channel. I hope you are all well. Let's move on to the story that Layla sent us. Her story is heard verbally of the same. This happened to us in 2016. My father did a government job. When he retired, he had a dream of building a home for his family. We have lived in a rented house since the beginning. The problem now is that retirement money isn't enough to build a home. There was a small house to see while living on a budget. Dad wanted the house to be small but his own. We just started looking for it. An estate agent saw us at a house. We were very happy to see it, but it was right next to the house cemetery. It was a double-story house. 2 rooms, a TV lounge and a drawing room, and exactly such a map was of the upper floor. This means that we could have rented the top portion. We loved the house, but were a little scared to go to the cemetery. I was shocked that this house was in the low range of all the houses we had visited, and the effects of happiness on my father's face were also noticeable. That's also why we didn't find any defects in this house, and we filled the house with supporters. He also gave a description of the house. We moved into the house for a few days. On one side of the house was the street, and on the back of the street was the whole cemetery. The wall of the lower portion was right next to the cemetery, and the balcony of the top portion headed out to the cemetery, and a window was facing the street. We started living there. I used to go upstairs every now and then. I don't know why I used to get strange feelings from the top. It seemed to me that someone was looking at me in hiding. I felt like that all the time, and these feelings just came up to me. Not in the bottom portion. I used to think that maybe it was an illusion. Anyway, a few days went by and some activities started happening in the portion above. There was an old chair lying on top. Its position would change. At first I never considered it, but now I have. When I went up and down again, the position of that chair would change. That is, if I had been in this chair, I would have been on the balcony. If I had ever been on the balcony, I would have been in the room. But no one came up. Then who teases it? Such things I began to notice. And when we fell asleep at night, someone would push the same chair on the ceiling. The sound of dredging came from the ceiling. Dad would have gone upstairs and looked around to see if there was anyone else present. Dad put the board outside the house for rent so that someone would be a resident as soon as possible, and let these cases be low. Finally, there was a family. And here they shifted. Uncle Ahmed had a wife and 4 daughters. Uncle did a night job. At night, his wife and daughters would be home alone. It was a summer day, and the whole family slept on the ground below. It was in the hall that the whole family fell asleep. As I mentioned, there was a window in the house from which the door of the present came out. They slept in the hall because the air was good here, and from the balcony, the cemetery was clearly visible. It was very scary. The area was also quiet. One night, everyone was asleep. It will be about 1 or 2 hours later that the above portion begins to make the sound of a harrowing kind of scream. His daughters and wife were all screaming. We all woke up too and ran upstairs. They were all sitting in one place. We went and asked, "What's happened?" They said we were all sleeping on the ground. So my daughter saw someone come up those stairs and crossed over us and went to this balcony. That's why my daughter screamed, and her scream woke us up and we saw her go too. I thought there was a thief and I ran after him and went to the balcony. I saw the man there face down in the cemetery. I closed the door, and right now the man is sitting there on the balcony. Upon hearing this, I called my father upstairs and said, "Look, someone is sitting on the balcony." My father opened the balcony door and saw that there was nothing in there. She was a lot of trouble nonetheless, and her condition was bad. "We stay with them," she said. We stayed with them until the morning. As soon as it was early morning, we came down and fell asleep, but she was still a lot smoother. They believed that he was not a thief, but an immoral creature. It was coming to my head over and over again how a human could finally jump from such a height. And if indeed he was a human, his bone rib should have been broken. and then he disappeared. It was very strange. And we too were terrified of what had happened. A lot of strange movements had happened at home before. It was a house bought from our father's accumulated wealth. We didn't want to spoil our father's heart. We pray 5 times in this house and recited the Quran regularly. Therefore, there may never have been anything like this in the not so worthy portion. But the same activities continued despite the family's arrival in the portion above. The stairs to our house were such that the first left had to go and chase. It means it was curved. And then came the door upstairs. My mother and I went to their house every night and encouraged them. We talked to them. Thus, everything became normal. One night it was midnight, and my mom's number got a call. My mother's phone rings and we all wake up. Mom was on the phone talking to the aunt above, and her voice could be heard clearly to us. Her voice was so scary. She said this to my mother: "The door of our portion is getting a very loud tip." "Do you have a man?" my mother replied. "No, we are all in the same room." While talking on the phone, my mother began to shake my father by the hand. My father was already awake, just closing his eyes and listening. When the call was ended, she said, "Look at the portions above. What are the issues? Since our home entrance was the same and our door was locked, how could anyone go up?" On the other side of the picture, as soon as it came into our heads, we realized that this was the same activity that had happened before. I said to Dad, "Go ahead." Dad opened the door and surveyed from the ground to the top. My father says that when I saw him, my eyes fell on the shadow of the black man who was standing by this door, and he was trying to peek in through that door. He had anticipated my coming and stopped knocking. My condition got worse and my body started to cool down. Then it felt like someone was descending from the top, and I felt someone walk past the room and heard his footsteps regularly. My body wrinkled. My father fitted himself and came down. He said that he saw the same shadow who walked past him, but did not dare to ask him anything. My father's condition was very bad, and he was terrified. The next day she came downstairs and said, "We want to leave this house." We were very comforted, but they were very nervous, and at no cost wanted to live here. And for the next few days they shifted to the new house. The workers took all their belongings and left only fans. An electrician came to unload them. He was taking off the fan alone. Suddenly he was scared badly and ran away from there. My father asked, "Why are you afraid?" He reported that a man stood facing the wall in another room. At first I didn't pay attention, but when I regularly noticed him, he was some strange-shaped human being. My father mentioned this to my uncle. He brought a man of knowledge to our house. He recited the Quranic verses. When they saw it, amulets came out of different places in the house. A doll that was used for black magic emerged from a wall at the top of the house. All the accessories together, the mullah said, pour into the river. It was a very bad spell for the family that lived before, which also led to the death of his daughter. The mistake was ours, which we did not ask about. Friends, whenever you buy or rent a new house, be sure to get information about it. This was the story of Lila. If you have encountered such an incident, you can send it to us.